Where's the monitor? Actually, the monitor's not on.
Welcome to the Hampton Beach Village District monthly meeting. It is Wednesday, July 12th, 2017. Can we stand for the Pledge of Allegiance? They moved the flag. Behind you. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Before we start, it seems to be a monthly thing. We're going to say take a short moment of silence. A longtime Village District resident, Eileen Janulowitz, passed away. We'd like to take a moment of silence. Okay. We have not a lot of room. Before the meeting starts, I'm just going to go off just a quick second because Selectman Bonds is here somewhere. Oh, she's over there, all right. And she has another meeting to go to, so she just wants to go over a couple things first.
Yeah, thanks, Commissioners, for letting me speak in the beginning. I wish the Board of Selectmen could have meetings like this. I think a lot of you are probably here for one item on the agenda, specifically the flooding that's going on all throughout town due to drainage, tides, whatever the reason is. It's a serious problem that the Selectmen are well aware of. And I was meeting with Chris and Jennifer of Public Works, and I think it's very important, and Chris has already been in contact with DRA as to getting someone in here, some type of an outside engineer who can come in independently and look at the entire problem in its entirety, whether it's from drainage, whether it's from flooding, whatever it is. And I'd have to talk to the town manager as far as the actual steps we need to take, but I would assume it would be something that you could petition a warrant article for a town election, and hopefully it can be something that can get passed this March, and we can really work on getting something done. It's not something that's going to go away, but the problem is way past the town of Hampton. It's really the state needs to get involved, and maybe even needs to be something nationally looked at. So I wanted to let you know that thank you for letting me speak right now. I know what you're going through. You know, I don't live down here, but I spend a lot of my time down here, and I see the problems, and they're very real. I live off Wanacunnet. I see the problems off of High Street. It's all over. A lot of this town is built on, on marshland. So it's inevitable that something needs to be done, and I want you to know that I'm going to try to stay on top of it for all of you. All right?
Thank you.
Thank you.
And unless there's anything else that I would need to
Is there any questions before she has to leave from anyone?
Yeah. Yes.
Part of our concern in our neighborhood, we're off the ground out here.
Okay, yeah.
Is that we discussed it last season about having some sort of access to either cut through the parking lot or to have a walkway of some sort around that bend. It's dangerous.
Yes, I agree with you, definitely.
The lights were supposed to be put in, and I don't think they've done that.
Yeah, I know.
All right. Well, we're working with the fence company to try to just have an opening there, and that's something we were talking about actually today. So that should be happening very soon. We can't do sidewalks through that corner. It's too dangerous right now, and plus everybody on that street would lose half their front yard, whatever side they decided to put it on. So we will try to open the fence up in the summer months, and it'll be closed in the winter months. So yes.
I noticed that the University of New Hampshire did a study of flooding on some of the roads in Hbvd. That was an article in the paper. Would that be any kind of a thought to us where it wouldn't cost so much?
Yeah, that's a good idea. I will.
Something to research that, maybe a project at school.
Definitely. Yeah, I will let the Director of Public Works and Town Manager follow up on that for you.
So,
Yeah, I'd like to second the issue of this young lady here in front of me regarding the safety of walking around that bend. I don't know if anybody on the committee has actually done that. If you don't live there, there's about 75 cottages and homes back there. They all walk this way to get to the beach, to get to St. Anne.
so the only thing that the village district can do is we can open that fence so you have it cut it through. That is a town issue, and we'll open the fence to make it a little safer.
Who owns the fence?
No, that's our fence. No, that's our fence. So we can open that fence.
You
Yeah,
can open that fence.
and that's what we're going to
That
do.
fence could be open in about an hour.
Right.
You guys, 1 hour, that fence could be open. And I'll tell you, to wait any longer because you're in season now.
Yeah, no, we're working on it.
Extremely dangerous, believe me.
And unfortunately, if you go the other way, there is a sidewalk, but this way it's pretty dangerous.
What do you mean the other side?
No, you'd have to go down Island Path, I guess, to hit a sidewalk. Is that right? So
You're working in the opposite direction.
the other direction. So that's
To advance it, right?
Right.
In fact, trying to walk on the other side of that bend, there's all kinds of overgrown shrubs. And I've seen people walk over there,
right,
and they have to go out into the street to walk around all these overgrown shrubs.
right.
And
No, I agree with you 100%.
it's really bad.
Is that town? Can you guys cut those shrubs, or is that?
Yeah, I can actually. I know. I actually am very familiar with the location. I ride my bicycle there almost every day, weather permitting, and I know how dangerous it is. And yeah, I can follow up on that for you.
Great, thank you. All right.
Anyone else?
Thank you very much.
Thank you so much.
Yeah.
Thanks.
Take care. Okay, Michael, I don't want to even try to pronounce your last name. Can you do that for me? Mucciola. All right, great. Just so everybody knows, this is an event that he was on the agenda. We're looking to do another event with the town, with maybe Experience Hampton, a co-sponsor event at the end of the summer after Seafood Festival. So why don't you tell us what you're all about?
Sure. So I'm a representative of Boston Circus Guild. We're an organization of roughly 70 performers, everything from an acrobat to an aerialist to a musician to a fire performer, which is what we're talking about for this particular event. We have done shows of sizes ranging from 1 performer to 22 performers. And the event that we've been discussing in detail is a show that we actually just did a couple weeks ago in New York for an event that we called A Night on Fire. And it was a ticketed event for 500 people for this particular event. And it was a 6-performer show, about 45 minutes to an hour long, a little bit of Q&A and kind of meet and greet after the event. It's a huge spectacle. Fire performance is basically this idea of manipulating props, torches, staves, rope darts, some things that have been repurposed from other movement arts into the fire art, basically lighting something on fire that you wouldn't normally think of. And it is something that is a memorable spectacle that is good for all ages. This event that we just did recently, the style of performance, was perfect for a family to come on out for an evening and sit down and just kind of gather. I like to think of it as gathering around the campfire and actually sharing an experience of something that is primal with fire, but also engaging. There's comedy involved in the show, and it is something that is a shared experience that can really be talked about long after it. The performance is set to some high-energy music, ranging in everything from kind of modern music to remixes of soundtracks, Pirates of the Caribbean soundtrack, that kind of thing, and is done with spectacle in mind, but safety in the forefront. This is a performance that we've done for 7 years in one variation or another as an organization, this specific style of performance. And we actually start the performance with safety introduction. We make it obviously entertaining and still fun as we are talking about it, but safety is in the forefront for us as we do this. We work with local jurisdictions to make sure that whatever regulations they have in terms of how it needs to be presented will be done. We'd be happy to work with local groups here as well as a state group. One of our performers for this particular performance is a licensed performer in the state of New Hampshire, which is very important for the regulations here, and has had experience working with those regulations, so we feel very confident that we'll be able to abide by whatever it is that they need.
Do you have any props or anything to show?
Oh, goodness.
anybody?
I mean, I can put on some video for you. I don't know how visible it will be is the question. I don't know if you have any.
Well, we have a projector right there. I mean, a screen. Can you project on the
Do you have an HDMI cable that hooks up to it? That would be lovely.
I think I left
Who's the AV guy here?
I left mine at home.
Oh. Goodness. Eat some fire for you guys. That's a great idea.
Is there a website or something that we could
Yeah.
perhaps?
In fact, if you go to bostoncircusguild.com, the fire performance page on the talent page there actually has one of the videos that I can show right now. It's screen size is questionable. But that would be a very good kind of demonstration of the style of performance we're talking about and the energy level we're talking about.
Okay. Want to show us?
Sure. I mean, it's a question of do you guys feel good about having a small screen? Okay.
Thought that was going down.
Oh, not at all. You're great. All right. Should I put it up on there? Is that best? Sure. Go into space real quick. Sorry for you guys.
That's all right.
Hey, wait a minute, I gotta pay for this. I wanna see it. No. Never mind, Glenn.
Sit down on the floor in the front.
The lights actually real quick. That's a little easier.
Lights are behind you. Diana?
These two here?
I think so.
Turn them all.
Irish music. You guys see this?
Can Jamie see it?
That's what this is said. I think he's probably seen it already.
I have other ones you can on. We don't need to.
Do one more. Just one more.
You're blocking the view.
That's one of 50, Stephen.
Then we can, I got the idea.
They do audience participation. Do they do audience participation? That's what I meant. I was thinking that as part of the program.
What does everybody think? Will you go to this? Be on the beach.
On the beach, yeah.
But there'll be a second collection.
We're going to pass the plate around. No, we're going to do it on the beach.
Yeah, if there was a cover would not be so good.
Yeah, no.
Especially saw at the end there the kind of big bursts that we can do.
Gentlemen, you able to see
Any
it?
response?
What do you think?
No?
Yeah, we'll have that conversation.
Okay.
Hi. So I've talked to the state, and they're willing to talk about it once we get approvals from the fire marshal and the fire chief, and we can go from there and see. Does anybody have any questions about it, or anything in the audience? Anybody?
Would it be better off having it during Children's Week?
No.
It seems like the
No.
kids like it even better.
It's there's just so much going on Children's Week that it's and it's kind of to do something at the end of the season. Yeah, I think.
It's, what we're thinking about is Seafood Weekend, the town gives up its beach to a much larger community. The weekend after Seafood Weekend is an opportunity for the different players in the town to invite the town to the beach. That's why we're reaching out to the Chamber, the Town Recreation Department, and Experience Hampton, and asking if they'll co-sponsor with us.
So the funding would be a cooperative between some of the other...
That's what we're hoping for.
Yeah, that's our goal.
That's the plan.
That following weekend happens to be a major event here that maybe we can reach out to them also.
Which one is that? One of the races?
One of the road that reached the beach.
Oh, yeah, that's big. Yeah.
You know, and they hang around Saturday night, so it might be something that...
When does the race actually take place? Is that a 2-day thing or when?
It's a 2-day thing, but they're here
They're here the Saturday night. Yeah.
And it'd be good to bring them down to the main beach because they actually spend a lot of their time at the state park. This would pull the crowd to the main beach.
Yeah.
The night event, right?
They run to the state
It
park,
can
don't they?
be dusk. Basically, we want it to be
I
at
think saying
least.
at night, you know, this is
Yeah, because they use our
for the-
parking lot,
yeah.
so they're coming back up anyway.
Right.
What kind of money are we talking about for the show?
I think the proposals that we had for the 6-person show, let me pull that up. I think we looked at 3 different options on size and about 5,000 for the 6-person show. That doesn't cover whatever the local jurisdictions will need in terms of fire detail. That covers basically our entire show and the safety crew for that. If we need to bring a sound system, we can also do that with no extra charge. If we need to be here a day in advance to do a demo with the fire department or something weird like that, that's when we would be looking at extra costs, but it can be negotiated as small as we can.
45 minutes to an hour.
45 to an hour.
That's
Right.
nice.
And then they do a question and answer at the end.
You're welcome.
How much of the beach do you need to do this?
We need 40 by 40 for sure, and then we're going to need to discuss with local jurisdiction on how much of a buffer they want and what style of buffer they want instead of hard barrier versus stanchions, and then that might affect how much of a gap they want between audience and performance space.
Being on sand on
Totally
interfere.
It's kind of luau-ish, so it's kind of...
Well, I mean, you saw the fire sword fight there in the second video, and that one will be, I think, more fun with some sand flying around as the performers are rolling around a little bit. So.
I'm just looking forward to the state's response to this. I'm excited already.
So I need you to send to Phil Bryce this.
Okay.
I wanted to have...
Oh, the video was multiple locations. A lot of the aerial shots. There was a camp in Maine called Camp Modine. That sleepaway camp. They did a surprise performance, and that was on their hockey, like a floor hockey rink. But we are often on pavement, on baseball diamonds, on the infield dirt, grass. So it doesn't really matter for us. We adapt it. The sand's just going to probably make our workout a little bit greater in terms of just doing a little more. But.
All right, excellent. Any other questions? No? All right, great. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Michael.
All right, great.
Okay, thanks for coming in.
Is Kristen here?
You guys have any questions for us?
No, you let us know what you think, and we'll
Yeah,
go
you're
from
going to
there.
have to do all that again.
All right, you just let us know. We'll do whatever we need to.
Great item, break.
Yeah.
Maybe to connect you
Kristen?
into the pig roast. We fine?
You're on. So Kristen Howard from NHDES.
Do whatever you need to do. Say that again.
Say it again.
Yeah.
So it's Kristen Howard from NHDES. Can you explain what NHDES is? All right.
All right.
So that's what most everybody's here for.
Yes.
For you.
I figured.
Yeah.
Okay. Hi, everybody. My name is Kirsten Howard. I'm a coastal resilience specialist with the New Hampshire Department of Environmental Services Coastal Program. I'll also mention that our program administrator, Steve Kutcher, is here as well, just to kind of listen and make sure we're sort of hearing all of the issues that that folks are having that you guys want to discuss today. But the reason I came, Bob invited us to come and speak a little bit about some some of the issues that came up in the last meeting, and I know you guys have been discussing for a long time. I thought I would start by just giving you a quick idea of what the coastal program within DES does. So typically, we're housed within the water division of DES, which some of you may be familiar with from the Wetlands Bureau side of things. We're separate from them. We're funded by the National Oceanic and Atmospheric Administration, by NOAA, and so we're given pass-through funds from NOAA to fund a small staff within DES and also to provide technical assistance to the 17 coastal communities within New Hampshire, including Hampton. So we do that in a number of ways. Over the past decade or so, flooding, coastal hazard issues have become more and more of a priority for our program. The UNH study that one woman mentioned, if it's a study that you were referring to, we were involved in helping to get that developed and published. We provide staff support from the planning kind of side of things and project management. We provide, in some cases, when the federal budget allows it, pass-through grants to communities to do different projects on kind of a competitive basis. And then we also fund planning assistance on a pretty regular basis for the Rockingham Planning Commission, which provides some support to Hampton as well, specifically to focus on coastal management issues. So I'm not an engineer and I'm not a permitter, but what I did after kind of reading the minutes from your last meeting and thinking about it a little bit was reached out to a number of folks within DES, within the Rockingham Planning Commission, and within other state agencies to put some resources together to try and start to answer some of the questions that are coming up and help folks move forward. So first I'll mention, everybody said it was fantastic to see the 4 issues that were listed really clearly articulated. That's really helpful for us in moving forward to think about whether we can provide any technical assistance on any one of those 4 points. I think it was the parking, the emergency alerts, the engineering assistance, and then specifically help with permitting. So I'm sure there's broader issues associated and obviously more localized issues when it comes to specific areas in town that are flooding, points of flooding concern and drainage concern. But I guess what I'll mention is I put together a few resources, probably not enough handouts for everybody, but I can also send them electronically to Bob to sort of help you understand what contacts are available within different agencies that might be able to help with different pieces of that. Now, if it's helpful for you, I can go through some of those now, but I want to use the time in the best way possible. So if it's helpful for you, I can give you an overview of the funding that I know is out there, in addition to kind of the town level, the funding that may be available in the future to deal with some of these issues, and also just the contacts that might be worth reaching out to under different situations. I'll just mention one thing that's super relevant to your last discussion, that might be helpful for the emergency alert piece, and folks may be aware of this at this stage in time, is that in 2013 a tide gauge was installed in Hampton. Folks might be aware of that. It had some issues in the last year or so that have been fixed. It's managed by a partnership with Nirakus, which is an ocean observing system organization within the state. They work with the National Weather Service, and there's a website on this page that I printed out for folks that basically gives you real-time tide level data and then determines sort of the alert level as it relates to flooding. And there is a forecast RSS feed associated with that you could potentially incorporate into existing emergency alert systems within town. So I gave you both the links to that. You might know about it already, but if you don't, then now you do. So that might be one feature that helps you with that second item on the list. Do you want me to continue at this point and just give kind of an overview of the state programs that come up?
I think so, yeah.
Okay, great. All right, so as I mentioned, the coastal program has some assistance available sometimes. We don't have any competitive grant programs out right now. Last year, we did offer a coastal resilience grant opportunity that would potentially, if you were looking to do an engineering study about what's feasible related to raising roads, for example, then the town might be able to assist with that. Then again, sometimes it's a lot faster if you're able to go through the town process and get a warrant article. As the selectwoman said earlier, that might be your easiest approach. So just so you know, we'll keep this issue in mind, and if future opportunities come up for that, that may be an option. The Rockingham Planning Commission, who I know you reached out to already, I spoke with them, and they said they're happy to come to any future meetings you guys have to talk a little more. We, as I mentioned, fund them to provide technical assistance to communities focused on coastal issues, so they have a grant right now where they might be able to provide a little bit of staff support to at least help move the process forward from a planning perspective, but they don't offer engineering services. If you wanted engineering services associated with the Rockingham Planning Commission work, it would have to be sort of a larger grant, and they would hire a contractor. So again, it might be faster to go through town processes, or depends what the priority is for the group.
Is there a way for you to go for federal for us, or something?
For engineering specifically?
And to get the work done.
Yeah, okay.
Army Corps of Engineers or something.
So I can get into the federal stuff. So typically, the programs that come to mind for federal funding have to do with FEMA, the Federal Emergency Management Agency. They run the National Flood Insurance Program, which some of you may be quite familiar with. They also have hazard mitigation programs. And so the pamphlet that I put over there lays out pretty clearly, there are only 20 of them, but I can send you the electronic version, the 3 different funding programs that FEMA provides for raising homes, for doing more culvert replacements or enlargements. There are some stipulations associated with each of those grant programs, and they typically come through the state. So the Department of Homeland Security and Emergency Management usually collects the FEMA money and then distributes it to towns. So currently, Whitney Welsh and Jennifer Gilbert are probably your contacts you would want to reach out to associated with FEMA funding. I've listed their contact information on this sheet as well. Jennifer runs the state, sort of the state contact for the flood insurance program. Whitney is our state hazard mitigation officer. So some of you might remember one of the bigger snowstorms that happened in the spring that was declared a federal presidential disaster. And as a result of that, some money was given by FEMA to the state, and then they do currently have a funding opportunity open. They're requesting letters of intent by August 1st. And the letter of intent has to come from the town, so you have to get your board of selectmen probably to submit that. I think they have a fairly minimal amount of money. I'm not sure what it is, but Whitney is happy to talk to you more about it. There is a match associated with all of those grants. I think it's 25%. And that money, that pamphlet lays out really clearly what it can be used for and what it can't be used for. So that's the first program listed on that pamphlet. In addition to that, the other 2 programs are funded based on the federal budget, and at the moment there isn't really funding available for that. But if there is, Whitney and Jennifer and I could certainly make folks aware of that. One of those programs is specifically related to private homes, and there are some stipulations around those programs as funding becomes available about you're only eligible for some of that funding if you have flood insurance, for example. But they're all different, so that pamphlet's great for those purposes.
What did you just say about flood insurance?
One of the grant programs requires that you have flood insurance on your home before you can be eligible for the money. But then the money would be able to be used to raise a home or mitigate in some way. Yep. I'm not aware that funding is available in that program at the moment, but it comes up in the next budget perhaps. Yeah. So that's the extent of the federal funding that I'm aware of. Occasionally the coastal program is able to apply for other grants through NOAA, and we come up with proposals associated with them. So if that were to come up, there's likely to be one in the fall, but again, federal budget dependent, so we're still kind of waiting to see what that funding will look like. And there could be potential to do some planning, some engineering design, that type of thing within that. I will say that coastal programs funding sources are not eligible to be used on private property, so that is definitely a limitation with the NOAA money for construction. So, but design, planning, those sorts of things, we've done a lot of.
Well, could that money that you're speaking of, NOAA, be used to like raise roads or put in fill for the street?
So we haven't done that yet with NOAA money, but I won't say no. I'm not entirely sure. It would probably be a case by case basis depending on where it is. I will say the other person I talked to is Eben Lewis, who is with our Wetlands Bureau. He does a lot. Does the permitting out here for the Wetlands Bureau for dredge and fill and for shoreland. So he's also happy to chat with anyone if they have something they want to do to their house, or if you're talking about road raising, he would definitely be someone to talk to about the permitting requirements. Many of you are probably more familiar with those than I am, but he did want me to bring up the fact that you do have beautiful wetlands in the area. They certainly are providing you a lot of flood mitigation benefits. They're attenuating the storm surge in those big storms, and they're keeping the water out, but only to a certain extent, and they are prime wetlands. So that means that any permit through the Wetlands Bureau would be a major impact project.
From like what you're saying, I think that's why we're all here, because if I did something to my property, say, and spent money, it's not going to do any good. The roads have to be raised.
Right,
somebody has to come in and say, the roads have to be raised or dredged or whatever, and then you move forward and do what they say to do. You know what I'm saying? Right. But for me to do anything to my property would be a waste of money and time because my road's flooding.
Yeah, so obviously it is a group kind of issue. It's a community issue when you're talking about the road has to meet your driveway, and
right.
So the Rockingham Planning Commission might be worth talking to about being able to kind of come up with some quick options that have been sort of applied in other communities that are comparable to Hampton. They may so I'd definitely say talk to Julie if you're interested in that approach, and also kind of laying out what the steps are within New Hampshire planning and permitting within that realm to help folks get a better sense of how to move forward on this.
Can you give us any examples of what other communities in New Hampshire have done to address this issue, both short-term and long-term?
Yeah, so Hampton and Seabrook certainly are the most at risk of tidal flooding within our coastal area. So you guys are to some extent on the cusp of having to be innovative, unfortunately, about these types of issues within New Hampshire. There are more examples, I would say, in Massachusetts that might be applied. Portsmouth, for example, has installed one-way flaps on a lot of their drainage so that the stormwater will go out, but the tide won't come in. We've been looking a lot at culvert sizing. It's a tough issue with property, with the butters, but in some cases, expanding culverts might make sense, although in a lot of those communities they have a little more they have a little more relief in the floodplain just because they're at a slightly higher elevation. I will say that I also brought a copy of the Coastal Risk and Hazards Commission report, which you guys can have if you want. And I also brought some one-pagers that have the link to it over there, so you can take a look at that. That has a lot of recommendations within it that are specific to New Hampshire, focused on flooding in the coast. It also lays out the sea level rise scenarios that the commission agreed upon with its science panel, and so that's just some of you are probably aware of those as well. But it's part of why you may be seeing more flooding now is because that's starting to happen, and it's not going to get better based on best available science. So that's a reality that planning now makes a lot of sense for that. The other piece I wanted to mention actually is the legislature just passed a bill. It's SB 185, and passed it on July 6th. It came out of the Coastal Risk and Hazards Commission process. It will become effective in September, and it's an act extending the community tax relief to coastal properties subject to storm surge, sea level rise, and extreme precipitation. Some of you may have followed that bill. I've only really just read it closely in the last couple of weeks, so I can't really offer much analysis on it, but it does enable the town to create what's called a coastal resilience incentive zone that would then provide tax relief to homeowners that do mitigate in some way, and also enables the town to set up a coastal resilience incentive zone fund that would be non-expiring, that could assist properties with these mitigation efforts. So, I mean, whether that's helpful or not is just something to be aware of. All right.
Kirsten, I have a question.
Yeah.
If you had a home on one of these streets and your car was being flooded and everything was happening, what would you do right now? What would be your steps that you would take?
Yeah, I'm definitely sympathetic to the extent and seriousness of the issues that are happening. I've been down here on a spring tide and seen how the garbage cans are floating around on the streets, and I think a woman who had rented an apartment and hadn't lived here before stuck her head out the window and said, "Did you know this was going to happen? I didn't move my car." And so, you know, it's obviously very clearly a very serious issue that's happening now. If I had a home here, I think I would probably be at this meeting with all of you, and a little bit worried.
Well, considering your experience in this area, I'm just wondering, where would you go? What would your
So I would say to the extent that flood insurance is an option for you, make sure you have it. I
have a question for the people. Is there anybody that doesn't have flood? Can you get flood?
Yes. $14,000 a year on my car.
Yeah.
Flood, it doesn't matter. It's a one-time shot. So you can have flood, but they won't do anything unless it's one time. So this, you know, when the high tides come and it destroys your bottom of your house, and it keeps on coming and your bottom is destroyed, they won't
one
do
time.
Oh no, because it didn't take one time.
Got it.
It's not like it's just
and it's so expensive. Yeah.
Exactly.
Very expensive.
Yeah.
What a price.
It's
And I have pictures of people's homes to share.
I'm just going to answer that that's not a question that I think I'm fully capable of answering now, but I'm happy to provide you with some resources about what I think are some options. I mean, it's an issue that I think will continue to need to be discussed, and there are options out there, but I can't fully put myself in your shoes.
I
guess my question is, and I appreciate your question, we are the residents that live on these streets. We are the ones where our property is being destroyed, our homes, our cars. Paying taxes. So, and I appreciate your role at NHDES. I really do, and I think these folks do as well. Where would we start so that we could start being heard regarding our concerns? We know this is going to be a long process and not an easy process. Direct us on where our best resources are.
Okay, so the page that I put together is the best set of resources that I have. Natalie, if you wouldn't mind passing that out to, again, only 20 copies, but I'll send an electronic version. I do think right now your best option for funding is a warrant article within Hampton and going to the select board. I think that advice from the last, and obviously that impact has been made. She was here, so that's a good start. I'll also say that the flood mitigation program funding that's available now is probably one other option I know of that would get funding here soon. In addition to that, the folks listed there and my program will be available to continue participating in the discussion and trying to direct you to the best people.
So our next, one of the calls that we're waiting on is from the DPW director, Chris Jacobs.
For Hampton.
For Hampton. Do you want to be involved in these meetings going forward? Do you want us to keep you or someone from your program involved?
I think to the extent that that you're comfortable having us involved, we're learning to some extent along with you. Okay. So yeah, I mean, absolutely.
We appreciate that.
Okay.
So I do have a question about, and that, I guess it should have been made to the select woman. March is a long way off, and it may fail in March, and it may not pass, and then we would have laid all of our eggs in that one basket.
Yeah.
So what can we do, setting that warrant aside? What can we do to be more proactive to get things moving? And I agree, it is going to be a process.
Yeah.
But there's a lot of risk with that particular path. So what other path do you think we should focus on?
Yeah, so I think the flood mitigation program the hazard mitigation program funding that's available now, if folks can get a letter of intent submitted by August 1st, that's really probably the fastest way to get money.
And is that individually or is that collectively?
The town submits a proposal. Okay. So it could be an individual, it could be a group that is behind that proposal, but the town has to submit it.
I have one thing to say. It's the people who own and live here year-round that have got to do it. Because even though I own, I'm not allowed to vote on anything precinct or local. But I own property and I'm in a position that you can't do anything.
Sorry, go ahead.
No, it's just one of those things.
One of the issues that I've seen is when you fix one problem, you create a problem somewhere else, because water has got to go somewhere.
Yeah.
They build new condos, they raise the land, it looks beautiful, they don't have any water issues, but their neighbors have water issues, which is your neighbors. And they put the gate up down by Brown and Church Street to stop the water from flooding that area. Well, that water's got to go somewhere. So I think these little things that you're talking about are great to start with, but we need something major to, whether it's a levy, I don't know what can be done nowadays. I know that the Environmental Protection Agencies make it very hard to do a lot of the stuff. I don't know what can be done, but it's the little things will be great in the beginning, but I think we really need to go for huge.
Chuck, if I can just update the board. Speaking with Chris Jacobs this week, he is pulling the plans for the Brown Ave area as well as all the streets west of the police station, and then he'll be back in contact so that we can set up a meeting to start to talk about what can be done and also possibly the warrant article for March. But understanding what Frank is saying, you're right, we can't put all our eggs in one basket. So reaching back out to your group, I think, would also be helpful, and then even if we have to go down different avenues and start planning moving forward.
Yeah, I mean, taking advantage of every avenue there is probably one of them will hopefully work out. I will say there are some folks within more outreach-oriented groups that are interested in kind of promoting this issue and making it more of a priority within the different bodies within the state agencies within the legislature, and so the New Hampshire Coastal Adaptation Work Group is one website that I linked to. It might be they would be interested in discussions or workshops. We have in the past been to workshops where we've listened to folks planning in communities in the Miami area or in North Carolina or in areas that were affected by Superstorm Sandy, and listening to how they have dealt with some of their flooding issues and rebuilt in a different way, and so that could be a potential option. But again, like you said, I think it will be a process. The other piece that I think is really helpful for my program, if you do want us to assist you, is the more developed a proposal you can kind of put together around those 4 priorities or whatever they may be, the easier it is for us to sort of make the case when funding becomes available So, if folks can flesh out what exactly those engineering services need to look like and where, and what specific kind of permitting questions you think would need to be addressed in permitting technical assistance, that would be really helpful for us. We can help with that to some extent, but it kind of has to come from you guys.
Kristen, are you familiar with the study at UNH about the effects on groundwater of sea level rise?
Yes.
Can you address that a little bit?
Sure. Actually, so for those of you who aren't familiar with it, Jennifer Jacobs and Jane Knott at UNH have been working with a group called the Infrastructure and Climate Network for Transportation Issues or something like that. One of the issues associated with sea level rise is not just that you'll see high tides, it's that the groundwater table is going to get pushed inland and up along with that seawater moving inland. So they're doing a study to basically understand under different sea level rise scenarios where that new groundwater table will be. It can help inform work around saltwater intrusion in your drinking water sources, and also infrastructure and ecosystems that would be affected by higher groundwater. There are certain communities in the coast that are more affected by groundwater rise than sea level rise. And so Portsmouth, for example, has a really high groundwater table to begin with, and so they're actually going to see a lot of impacts from groundwater rise depending on the sea level rise scenario compared to some of the other communities further south. My program is actually working right now to get a grant to make that data more publicly available on maps. So I'm not sure if you did work with Jennifer or were involved in any of the discussions as they developed that data, or if you just saw it in the news. But
no, I'm not on that. We've had connection with her of the community rating system.
Oh, yeah.
Which is a work in progress.
So that's Jennifer Gilbert, I believe.
Yeah.
Yep.
Two Jennifers.
Yep.
I think they've both been here.
There are lots of Kristens and Kirstens, too, so I'm Kirsten.
And I'm sorry I put it
No,
in.
that's okay.
Weren't you an American Girl doll at some point?
That's true.
I have a question. Have you gone before the selectmen yet? Have you made an appointment to do so?
We have not. We were, Fred Welch did call me on June 30th, asked me to hold off going before the selectmen until we could meet with Chris Jacobs, Chris being an engineer, and having 3 additional engineers in the DPW group.
I was just thinking about that letter of interest by August 1st. Perhaps that might be something that Chris Jacobs could have a hand in because you don't have a lot of time, it seems to me. You know?
So do you know if there's a format to do the LOI?
Yes, I included the link on this handout, and it's actually, I looked at it, it's a pretty simple form. I'll send the electronic version, then you can just click right to it, because it's kind of a long link.
Yeah, that would be helpful. I know that's what I was wondering. Is there a certain format, certain information that we need?
Yeah, I think you attach a letter, but you have to fill out the form.
And I'm going to tell you, we've worked with Chris and Jennifer on different things, and they're super. Awesome. They really are. So they're very professional, and they know their stuff, so it's good. Hampton's very lucky to have them.
I can't speak for the group, but I'm going to assume that we probably want to do the letters of transfer.
Yes. My husband and I are residents down on Bragg Avenue. We have very similar issues down there. But I'm thinking, obviously, most of you seem to be from the Brown Avenue area. You have
from all different places.
But do we have a list that we could put our names on?
Before you leave tonight, please give me your name, address,
I have a grant question. All these grants that we're talking about, free money, are they matching? Are they most of them matching, or?
Depends. The one that you would submit a letter of intent for would be a match of 25%.
The reason I say that is because anytime town's concerned about 2 things. Yeah. They're concerned about tourists and they're concerned about schools. So a lot of these are vacation homes. They don't care about our vacation homes. A lot of people own 2 homes. Guess what? They don't care about us at all. And stuff. A lot of us aren't voting. And so anytime the town's going to have to come with 25% when they vote on it, they're probably going to say no. So I think we're counting on that kind of money for that. You know what I mean? It's going to be real hard to get people, unless you can use that saltwater thing or something that's going to affect them. It's going to be real hard to get the towns to match money to, you know, I mean, if you're talking $10 million and the government's going to give $7.5 million, the town's not going to do $2.5 million unless it involves school. Now, if the boardwalk was flooding, that'd be a whole different story. We'd have hundreds of people in here. We'd have things done so quickly. You know what I mean?
Well, you say that, but most of the people on the boardwalk do not vote on the beach or in the town. They're not from.
I wouldn't care.
But the town of Hampton understands that more than a third of their tax base comes from Hampton Beach. So we're definitely.
I think they're going to get that anyway. I think they're going to.
Well, not if your houses won't sell because they're underwater.
On my street alone, like there's 15 homes, a lot of tax revenue. Nobody goes to school, even if they do, who cares? But that marsh was put there to collect tax dollars. Now we have a problem with the flooding. It's man-made. There's a flooding problem. I can't fix it. I need to fix it. I live there.
But I'm going to tell you, I've been on the beach a long time. Probably a lot of you, maybe longer. But we have the best select board that really works with the beach. When we need things done, they work with us. So I think this is the time to get things done, to move. If you've been here a long time, you've seen some really tough boards to deal with. And not just 1 or 2 selectmen, but 5 that were tough.
Well, we also have Senator Ennis that's on our side. I spoke with him this evening, and he apologizes for not being here. He's been ill, but he's very, very supportive to our cause. And I spoke with Nancy Stiles last week as well, and I'm waiting to meet with her. I've also spoke with Commissioner Rose at DRED, and he's very supportive. So I think the support is there. We just need to figure out how to group and then drive this in the direction that we think is going to.
And the governor is from the seacoast, so I mean that's another
I will
plus.
admit that they are doing better making sure, because way back they came in low. They should have come in higher, and whatever happened, now they make them come in at the height they were supposed to. Because when they did Brown Avenue to bring it around, all the manhole covers were put in. And all of a sudden they had to cut them down because they were 3 feet higher than the road. So they cut them down in order to put the road in.
And that's part of
And there's really no solution
and
for us.
that is one of the problems.
Yeah, it is. I agree.
I'd like to talk to your comment a little bit if I could. This is the old adage, the journey of 1,000 miles begins with a single step. The things you're addressing are in the immediate future, and there's no quick fix.
No.
But you got to stay the course, or there'll be no fix.
Well, they are doing things.
What they're about to have to do is going to be a very expensive doing. And there's a lot of data out there that would be powerful arguments, if used, to get the town to do it. When the Rockingham Planning Commission did the assessment of sea level rise, they basically divided into 3 levels of flooding, 1.74 feet and 6.3 feet. And they do it by sea level rise alone or in conjunction with storm surge. Then they made an assessment of the aggregate value of the affected parcels. And this is where your argument should go, I think. At 1.7 feet, 1,149 parcels are aggregately affected. At 6.3 feet, with storm surge, 3,065 properties are adversely affected. It ranges in the value of the aggregate properties from $414 million to $1,888 million. What's even more interesting in this is at 4 feet with storm surge, the aggregate property assessed value affected is nearly the same as it is at 6 feet. What am I saying? I am saying the town may not be able to survive as a town if this amount of hurt were to occur. A second argument you may want to get into is the Sea Level Rise Commission, the state formed, came up with a couple of interesting figures about the 17 towns that Kristen referred to, said the population of those towns is 11% of the state. The gross domestic product of those towns is 25% of the state. You also have the state heavily invested on Ocean Boulevard. The state has an enormous dog in this fight. What you're going to have to do is work toward the theme that everybody in this town is as affected as you are, only differently. And you'll reach them only when you're convinced to not do it is going to be more expensive to them individually than to do it. It's going to take time. It's going to take a lot of effort, but I think it can be done. You people are the engine driving this, and they will not ignore a large group. But you're going to have to sell it at the a couple of other things I would mention. Stephen is the chairman of the budget committee. If you are interested, in the fall when the budget committee starts meeting, those meetings are live televised. When the DPW director goes before the budget committee and presents his warrant articles and his line item budget, look to see if there's money proposed for these issues to be addressed at all in terms of engineering studies at this point particularly.
You also should take into consideration the amount of taxes that the people in this room pay, regardless of whether you leave here or not. And you need to probably tally that up and bring that with you. There's a lot of taxes in this room.
That's what my question is. Isn't the village paying more taxes than other sections of Hampton? So why shouldn't we get our money's worth in regards to that?
Well, the village district taxes go toward it goes to the entertainment and the advertising for the village district. So that's separate.
For people that own homes, I think that's you have to deal with that situation before you deal with anything else. You're bringing in money for the recreation and stuff like that, and that's fine. But where's that money going to?
I'm a little confused with that.
I think she's saying that you have to take care of the homeowners that are paying the taxes to fund all this stuff and to enjoy the beach instead of bringing in tourists. And that's great, but you got to take care of the homeowners.
Because if the homes are not good or proper,
Right.
then you're not going to get these people trapped anymore.
Oh yeah, no, I agree 100%.
Well, then that also impacts the M&R tax for the state, right?
Right.
Because that's rental property, so then that also goes back to the state.
Mr. Chair.
Yep.
Could I speak? Somebody in this group when we had our last meeting, mentioned that in Salisbury, Massachusetts, the Corps of Engineers, Army Corps of Engineers, built a wall, and there was a lot of federal money used, and I think that somebody in this group, maybe the group leader, should contact the selectman or mayor or whatever they have in Salisbury and ask them, how did you do this? And also, what did it cost? Some round number. Because are you familiar with what they did in Salisbury?
To some extent, and actually Julie LaBranch is pretty familiar with that project at the Rockingham Planning Commission. She said she'd be happy to share some information about it as well. That said,
I think it's gonna, as far as starting at the village district and then the town, you're talking a big project here, and I think we're talking federal government assistance, not trying to get it out of every taxpayer that lives here at the beach. It's got to come from higher up. Donald Trump.
So I actually know about this.
We need some of that.
They had a meeting, Commonwealth of Massachusetts, and I met with Fred Walsh down at the town meeting. They had a meeting, Commonwealth of Mass and U.S. Army Engineer Corps, and they get funded. They got 70%, and the taxpayers only had to pay 30%.
Yeah.
So, and it was because of the Massachusetts, and they had this didn't take a long. This took almost 11 years.
Yes, but they got it.
And like, if we do have like a warrant article for the engineers, what I was told that even if we do get a warrant article and it's put on they can get the engineers, they can do the study, but then we have to have another warrant article to get the funds.
Oh,
so we
yes,
can go
and
through that.
But I think that what I'm saying is that, as all of you that aren't from New Hampshire, that come here for the summer and pay big taxes on your properties, the way New Hampshire is set up with no sales tax, no income tax, so that all the money comes out of the pockets of the people that own land. And it's difficult. It's difficult. You can't keep going to them and saying, we're going to double your taxes on your house because we need all this money to build whatever you need to build. I think that the federal government has to step in. And perhaps you should be contacting Gene Shahan and Kelly...
Hassan.
Hassan. Yeah.
Kelly can't help you.
Not anymore. But I think you should be asking those people to get involved in this, because they're your federal representatives from the state, and the government of this country is to serve the people as well. And I think a project that big, and I think that's.
I agree. This isn't just going to be at the top. We're going to need a
It's got to be, right, this is a big project.
I think that was a 25% somebody talked about,
well,
too. So it's just like, you're talking a lot of money, 25% of a lot of money is a lot of money.
Yes.
But I'd rather spend 25 to get it
Yeah, but
fixed.
you don't vote here, that's the problem. See?
Well, I pay taxes, that's all they do.
You don't vote.
Well, the truth is that before I moved to Hampton, I lived at a lake where there were a lot of people that were from out of town, out of state, and the way it works is that for you people that don't vote, the selectmen in this town represent you, okay? And that's the way it works. So make your case known to the selectmen. They speak for you, okay?
We can't get to the selectmen just yet. We're kind of
You're working on it. I know, you're working on it. But that's, this is a big project. It's a big picture. It may take 11 years, 12 years to get it done right.
But you're right. Town, state, and then if we do, we can contact the feds.
Got to bring them in on this as well.
At the local level, you've got to understand where the points of opportunity to politicize are. In January, the Budget Committee has an open hearing for all money articles in the budget. You don't have to vote in the town to go and express an opinion. In February, the town has something called a deliberative session. And again, you can go to that session and express your opinion about the issues that matter to you. You've got to politicize it, or you're not going to get there. And you've got to use arguments that convince the rest of the town that it is as much at risk as you are, which they are. It's not as apparent or present, but it will come. And one thing I would have you consider doing is see if the UNH could do an economic impact study of the outcome of these different variables for assessed value impacts at different levels of sea level rise, what that would mean to the community as a whole, whether there'd be a community in the form we now know it.
This is a little different and a little bit off track, but when they put the nuclear power plant in, they dredged the heck out of the river, and that was the Army Corps of Engineers. Do they have any, will they use that cooling system? Do they have any impact on sledge building up? Can you get anything from them? That's what I'm saying.
Yeah, probably not.
Those inflow and outflows are probably...
That's the reason why...
They're a half a mile offshore.
Army Corps engineer will not dredge anymore in the marshes because it's special marshes. So I've been to the town, I was down by the marsh. They will not let you fill in, not let you do nothing. But in Florida, you can build seawalls. So why don't they let the people build a seawall if they want to build a seawall to keep the water out? Or a berm to stop the water from flooding the streets. Every high tide, full moon, I get flooded. My whole neighbor, the street, everything. And they will not, I went to the town, and they said that environmental don't want you to do nothing. Conservation. Yep. So
Now, is that state or is that local conservation? What is it?
local and state. They told me go to the state, fight with the state. Island Path. this end of
Julie, we're going to ban you if you keep that phone on.
So Brown Ave gets flooded and everything. And they were supposed to put one of those things that they did on the corner of, what's that, High Street and Brown Ave, and they were supposed to put one down on the corner of Island Path, and they never did. And I was told there's a big boulder stuck in there so the water doesn't go down Island Path any further. And this has been going on, I've been out here for 20 years.
I'd like to revisit what you said earlier, that you are holding off on seeing the selectmen. Were you told how long you must hold off, or how long that will be?
So, to his defense, to the town manager's defense, he called on June 30th, said that Chris Jacobs would call. It was the 4th of July week. They were pretty busy. I did speak with Chris on Monday. He asked for a couple of days. I figured I'd give him till Friday. He has my contact information. He just needed time to pull all the flooding reports and charts for our area, and then he's going to set up a meeting for anybody that wants to be involved. Fred Welch, as Mary said, she's met with him, and then we're going to get together, get all our facts in line, and then we will be scheduled to meet with the selectmen.
Well, I know, I immediately after our meeting last month, I got calls from 2 of the selectmen, from Regina and from Rick, and they're like, we got to do something to help these people. So they're on board. Right. Unfortunately, I haven't seen the others. I'm sure they're the same.
I haven't heard anybody that isn't. Everyone that I have
I'm telling you, we have 5 selectmen that are really pro-town, pro-beach. They're really, we don't have the butting heads that we've had in the past.
And I do understand revenue is revenue, and I work for the Department of Revenue of the state. So it's true. We bring in a lot of money at the town level, and also we give a lot of money to the state level. And people don't want to use that revenue, whether you're in town or state, or I'm sure the feds as well. So it's just figuring out how are we going to start to group, what are we going to do, and maybe setting up subcommittees with, so that everyone isn't doing the same amount of work, but subcommittees, and then we'll come back together. But it's really all of us together to do the work, and as it does affect all of us. Also, as Bob was referring to this report, he just gave me a copy of it tonight. I will scan it and I will email it out to the group so that, as he said, there's some really good arguments in here, and that should help us hopefully with the letter of intent that we want to put together. But time is ticking for that, so I'm going to need some assistance with putting together that letter of intent.
Kirsten, I don't know what your schedule is, but I don't. If you want to head out, we maybe take some last questions, or if you want to hang out, that's fine too. I just don't want to keep you here all night. So
I can stay for a little while longer. I
all
might
right.
sneak out.
Do you have any more
the
questions over
down,
here?
But
I have one. You started to speak about the wall or the dike down in Salisbury, and your friend knows about it. And what do you think? I've been down there to look at it. I was kind of impressed with it because it's not just dealing with one person. And I've been down to Manchester, knee-deep in water and everything else. And the problem is, if you just do one house, it's just going to go in the other one's driveway. But what they've done down there was to extend it all in the whole neighborhood. And I was very impressed with it. It's all fiberglass, it's high enough, it's got a rail on the top, and they've got culverts that go out with a gate valve so the water can't come in, but it can go out. Your friend or your cohort?
Julie LeBranch, she's a senior planner with the Rockingham Planning Commission,
Does she like that?
has evaluated it. She had a similar reaction to you. She was impressed with the aesthetic, I think, and thought it looked like it was well designed. She's not an engineer either, but I think she'd be happy to talk about it a little bit. I haven't been to see it. One thing I will mention is that I think it was referred to, but Massachusetts and New Hampshire wetlands permitting are pretty different in this situation, and so you'd be facing different barriers associated with the. I think Eben Lewis is probably the right person to talk to a little more about that, and they rarely have permitted walls in recent history, and with the prime wetlands, I think that is a factor. But again, not my area of expertise. So.
Elliot, sit down.
Some of the houses are allowed to build kind of
Elliot, sit down.
you know, to stop the flooding or basically, the erosion there. So it's kind of same thing. They don't do anything down on Manchester opposite. The foundations are going to come down, their house is going to erode. So, yeah.
Already happening, John.
I know. It is. So the rocks are okay, but
Again, Eben's probably the right person to chat with about that. He would say it's very much a case-by-case basis. Typically, within the hierarchy of wetlands permitting, riprap rock is favored over walls. That said, that's outside of a prime wetland area. So as far as he's in the Portsmouth office. Again, his contact information is on that sheet, and he said he'd be happy to chat.
I have a general question for the group. There are other people we could invite if you're interested in coming and hearing them. This is one of the advantages of having a village district. As a governmental entity, people will respond to the invitation. And we're televised. It's not live television, but Channel 2 will carry these meetings, which is another way to get your message out to a broader public. Channel 22. Channel 2 is a more highbrow Massachusetts version.
Well, do you think that we could invite Julie LeBranch here next meeting?
Sure. And Julie's been here a number of times on the community rating issue.
If she could come in our next monthly meeting, which would be the second Wednesday in August, a lot of you would still be here, and you could ask her about that project and get some more specifics about the Salisbury thing, because that's the thing that seems to be the solution of where we should be going.
I would say it's definitely worth having a conversation with Eben if you want to head down.
Invite Eben as well.
He knows the prime wetland more, and
The Rockingham Planning Commissioners just going into office. The executive director now is retiring, so maybe we should invite him along with Julie.
Yes.
If they're willing to come. We usually like to get their response before announcing it.
Just a suggestion about the discussion, and I don't want to intervene in whatever direction you want to go, but before you start asking people to come in and talk about solutions, I think you really start to understand the problems better and the engineering options that you may have before jumping to, we need a wall, we need this. Because you really don't have all the data for that yet, and it's just, anyways, you don't want to waste other people's time to jumping ahead of yourself and investing a lot of time looking at what particular options we think others that are out there that will provide a better solution in the long term. So just something to think about.
All right.
And so Julie did mention if you talk with her, she may be able to, within existing resources, compile a suite of a set of information that would sort of help to lay out the issue, help you understand what questions you need to ask. It sounds like the DPW is interested from an engineering perspective. It's definitely a good idea to have a conversation with them. Yeah.
You know, we all have a wealth of information, but we don't know how to compile it and put it in the right terminology so that we're speaking the same language as the engineers, as wetlands, as permitting. You know,
So-
we only know what we know.
Right.
So we need help with that.
Yeah.
And that was going to be my initial question. How do we start? Who would be the first group, or who can assist us with starting to, I think you made a good point about we have 4 topics that we brought in the June meeting. But how do we articulate those so that we can start to get what we need to get these problems solved?
Yeah. Well, our program and the Rockingham Planning Commission are the types of programs that help with that kind of translating and that kind of sort of proposal development and sort of putting into the right speak, so to speak. So I can continue to be involved, and I'm sure Julie would be willing to help too. I think in addition to those 4 things you mentioned, Steve's point is really good. There's almost like a bigger question of like, is the flooding issue drainage and tidal and kind of and where is it specifically? And there are maps out there that show a lot of that data, but to make sure that this group is on the same page about the fact that, you know, the issues are our drainage here and tidal here, and depends on the
We're also not the only group. There's a Green Street group right now that has already been to the selectmen at their past meeting. So there's a whole nother flooding issue that's being looked into in the town stream itself.
Up near Kings Highway.
Yeah.
I'm not quite clear whether you want us to invite these people in.
Not
or you
yet.
want- Not yet?
Not
Okay.
yet, but thank you.
Maybe we'll work on the September meeting.
Yeah.
And that way
Let
people
us-
should still be around. You let us know, and we'll go
that
from
would
there.
be great. We appreciate that, but I think we need to meet with Chris Jacobs. I think we need to meet with the engineers and see what data is out there. I think we know what we want, but we're not really sure we know what we want.
On an optimistic note, a couple of years ago, there was a warrant article to do away with commercial rubbish pickup. There was a groundswell of opposition, and that warrant article was defeated by about 83% against, 17% in favor. And the reason it was defeated is we were able to set in motion a series of arguments which show there was an enormous number of people affected. That's what you have here. You got to convince the people uptown that they have the problem you have, which they do. It's just in a different form, but you got to sell them to get the warrant articles passed. Good luck.
All right. Thank you very much for coming. Appreciate it.
Thank you, Chris.
Thank you. All right. So we're going to jump to old business. Should we have a minute?
This is the solution. They don't want to
Did you send it online? All right, no, we'll keep one for our thing. Okay. Okay, we're going to continue the meeting. Do we have any old business? Maureen?
I don't think I do. No.
No? Bob? I don't have any old business as well. New business? Bob?
No.
Maureen?
No.
Anything with the talent or anything going on?
Well, I was hoping that Glenn could stay, but
Thank you very much.
no, I don't think so.
I just have a quick shout out to Wayne Doobie. Wayne is a guy that's volunteered a lot of his time at the beach, working on the playground. Wayne had a health issue this winter, and he seems to be back. He's I don't know if you noticed, the lights are put back together. They're working at the playground. He does a lot of work in there. He does a lot of working on the swings. He just took one down the other day because it didn't look safe. Yeah, so he does it all for free because he likes to give back to the community. He likes kids having fun. He used to take my kids to the arcade all the time. I think he was really sad when the youngest decided he didn't want to go to the arcade anymore. But Wayne's a good guy, and he does it for the community. So I just want to shout out to him and then thank him for all he does for us.
I might also mention the Monday night movie. How many people, John, apparently?
How many, John?
600,000. How many people? 600 people?
Was it bigger than the inaugural?
Yeah. Oh, yeah. But a lot of people, it's grown, and I've heard so many things. I've heard so many comments about that Monday night movie and how wonderful it is. So
And it's
thank you
the
again.
best bang for the buck. People love it, and they just have a great time. I think it's great. And John sets it all up with a few other people. He does a great job. Bill and Rocky and who else is there with you? Bobby Vershon is there. Yeah, so we got to thank them for all the work they do. It's excellent.
John did say he does not want to see Frozen for at least 3 more years.
Really?
Polish coming out.
See, there
you go.
Cars 3 next year.
All right. The minutes from June 14th meeting. Do I have a motion to accept the minutes as written?
So moved.
I'll second.
All in favor? I think we had a lot of public comment. Any other public comment about different things? Uda, come on, give us something new.
What do we have in place for the upcoming?
We'll get to that after she talks.
Oh, okay.
All right.
I have that.
Uda Pena, 15 Tuttle Ave. We all know we have a parking problem on this beach. But every Saturday and Sunday, from the state park out to 95 is a parking lot, because the people in the state are either too stupid or too cheap to hire a second person to collect money so people can park. It's one lady collecting money, and it screws up the whole traffic. Northbound, southbound, it doesn't matter. We talked about it. I think you brought it up at the meeting from the state, and it continues. It's ridiculous. Last Sunday, at 11:30, the traffic was backed up from 95 down to 86 to the bridge. And there was no traffic going north on Route 1 because you couldn't even get there. I don't know. Why can we invite our Chris Sununu down here to see that? I mean, this is ridiculous. It's every weekend.
Definitely, I've talked to them, and now Brian has left.
I know he left
So now
because
we
I
have
called
a
the
little bit of a
office.
void. Let me talk to Mike Hausman again and see if I can get something.
If he doesn't want to do anything, I invite the TV camera down.
Okay.
Channel 9 News, I would assume they would
It
come
definitely
down.
doesn't make any sense that.
I mean, this is
fill
ridiculous.
That lot very quickly.
I mean, if it would be my lot, I had two people there collecting money. All the tickets have a number. The first 2 hours you drive in, you take one side, I take the other side. We'd sell 100 tickets times $20. It's $2,000 for the register. It doesn't take an Einstein. You know what I mean? Even when Motorcycle Week is up in Mount Washington, they have handheld credit card machines. Do they only work up in the mountains and not down here on the beach? I don't know. But you gotta get that traffic flowing.
I agree 100%.
And another thing is, what really irks me is the parking lots. Do you need a permit to have a parking lot in this town?
If it's more than 20 cars.
Yeah, if it's more.
Okay. Is it a one-time shot, or do you have to renew it?
We renew it every year.
You do? I'm asking you, you really do?
Yeah, what kind of parking lot is he talking about?
Parking lot.
Is it more than 20 cars?
Well, any parking lot on the back strip.
Well, they would know from the precinct.
But we don't have to. We're so a private lot of 20 cars or more has to get a permit.
Every year.
I believe so. But
Can the town put a restriction on how much they can charge?
No, it's a private lot.
No.
You cannot tie that in with given a permit. I mean, 4th of July, $70 to park a car is ridiculous.
My God.
Who is doing that?
On the back strip.
Wow.
That's all I'm saying, on the back strip.
It's supply and
You have a
demand.
young couple coming up here with 2 kids in the car. They have $100 to spend, and they pay anywhere from $50 up to park a car. There is nothing left over to spend in any of the stores or restaurant. No. To me, it's highway robbery, and they should be all ashamed of themselves.
It is. It is supply and demand, and that is why we need more parking. If we had more parking, then there would be less.
People don't come back.
I understand. I don't blame them. I wouldn't pay $70 to park, but I don't mind walking. As some people only want to go where it's convenient, so they'll pay more. So.
I'm lazy at night. I go to bed.
But if the people are willing to pay it and they can get it, that's what they're going to do. If the town wants to give them it,
couple who pays for it.
but if the town wants to give them a discount on their taxes, maybe they could charge less. Because we all know what we're paying for taxes, and it's not coming down. And this year you're going to see a surprise when the school is built, and we need a good school, and that's fine. But it's definitely supply and demand. And if you want to tell someone they can't charge $500 a day for a cottage, or whatever, you can't do that. So if they can get it, they're going to get it. Yes.
Do all the parking the town parking lots charge the same on those special holidays?
No, because if it's raining, it could be $5. If it's sunny and it's 100,000 people here, it could be $30.
No, I saw one for $40.
The town doesn't go past 30. 30's the most they'll go.
Well, they charge 40.
Not the town lot.
I think I've seen 40 for the town, I believe.
Really?
So, yeah.
Because we don't go over 30.
It's on Island Pass.
That's town.
40.
Yeah.
$40 an hour?
Yeah.
That's
They
crazy.
know you're desperate.
Yeah, the village district doesn't go over 30.
Yeah.
And it's usually, I think, 20 on the weekends and 10 during the week.
And it
So-
can be 5 a lot of times, too.
Yeah, it depends on the weather.
And in January, it's free.
If it's plowed.
I was going to
If it's
say, but you can get in there.
Yes, dear.
What about cars that take up, say 2 cars taking up 3 spaces on the street?
They're saving, like, people who live in the
They're saving
Oh, yeah.
parking spaces.
Then you call,
Like someone overnight.
yeah, call the police department. Because they can't, there's lines in the
Yeah, but
road.
they said, what do you want us to do?
Yeah.
I said, well, I don't think it's fair for a space to be taken up the whole day with 2 cars and there's 3 spaces.
What do you do about the cars on each street that block the sidewalk?
Well, no, you know what? I've seen them ticketing those cars. They have definitely. There was a house. Oh yeah, there was a house on I Street, and they'll do it immediately. There was a house on I Street that I saw them ticket, and I've seen them ticket on G Street. Those are streets that I'm on.
Sure. And I'm on H, but
yeah.
it's really unsafe when I have
But you call immediately.
grandsons.
Yeah. We spent all this money on sidewalks. We don't want people in the middle of the road.
So
Yeah.
if we call the police department, they will ticket them?
They will if they're
Every single day.
yeah. I would call them.
They're right always on the road. And you have to go out, I saw a woman with a bunch of kids, and she had to go out in the middle of the road.
There was a guy in a wheelchair that did.
Oh.
All right, well, that's good to know. Thank you.
No, you definitely can do that. So, and just because I agree 100%, but I've seen them ticketed. So, definitely.
I saw just a taxi in the corner, the taxi that parks there, he gets a ticket all the time. But not those,
Oh, they'll definitely ticket them. If you call them, they'll ticket them. Unfortunately, they probably just didn't have the staff over the 4th to do
This is
everything.
every day.
Yeah, no, I would definitely call immediately, and they will ticket them. Yeah. All right, any other public comment? Richard?
Richard Rennie at 29 Highland Ave. I wish that Linda Gebhardt was here because I'm kind of directing my question to her. One of my neighbors was mentioning that he was coming into on 101 and he stopped and he watched a woman taking care of the flowers at the sign out at 101. He said she was kind of a middle-aged woman, but she was lugging gallon jugs of water, right? And yet there is a standpipe with water accessible for that area. Why isn't it turned on?
You know what?
I don't know.
I pay those bills, okay, for the water that gets turned on.
Right.
And if you're talking about right where Highland Ave.
Well, the sign that says "Welcome to Hampton."
When you
Yeah.
come in off of 101.
Right.
Okay. There are no flowers in that.
There is now.
There is?
Yeah.
Okay.
Well, that's the point. This woman was planting the flowers and using gallon jugs of water to fill it up.
I'll tell you right now that if it's a Linda Gephardt project, the water would have been turned on because there is a pipe there, and the water gets turned on and turned off, and Linda and the beautification committee, they're the ones that call the water company and turn it on. So as far as us, I would check with Linda and find out what the deal is.
Right, because this was in the past week or so that the water was not on. That's why I'm...
Talk to Linda and find out because Linda takes care of that. Okay, she calls the water company and has it turned on, and then in the fall has it turned off.
Well, does it cost the...
Oh, it costs quite a bit of money to turn it on and off, and it's per month as well. Nothing is free.
Well, I don't think there's a meter on that spigot, though. Well, anyway.
They charge, I get a bill every month for the various
various
places
areas?
that we have, yes.
All right, well, I'll get a hold of Linda and see what she has to say.
Please call in and find out what the deal is, because I know in the past, they had special grasses that they had planted there. Remember when they first put the...
Yeah, that whole area was irrigated.
And then somebody came along and pulled all that special grass out that we put in, and then...
Thinking it was weeds.
Thinking they were weeds, right. And somebody planted some flowers, and for a while, there's a big blue barrel behind that.
Right.
Right, and there's
a spigot there.
Right. We were doing flowers, but I think for some reason or another, Linda stopped putting flowers there.
It goes back many years.
Well, somebody's doing it.
Check with Linda, please.
Flowers just went in the last couple of weeks.
Okay, check with Linda.
All right, I'll talk to Linda. All right, thank you.
All right. That looks like it, is it? Closing comments, Maureen.
No.
All right. No.
No,
Bob?
this gentleman, did you answer his question?
Yeah. Anything else? Or you? Oh, the parking, that's right. So we got some information. We'll get it out to everybody. Hopefully, I think only 10 people took advantage of it last
I
time.
gave out 18 passes
Yeah.
out of 20.
All right.
What do the passes say?
What did they
Welcome
say?
to the Lakes region.
Happy Hampton Beach.
Yeah.
Bring your own.
Move your car.
Selfie fresh. Do they have a time on them or a?
I put a time and I put a date, a time that the cars can go in the lot, and then when they have to be moved outside. And then it lists the dates of the high tide, and it lists the name of the lot. So previously we were in the cruise lot, and this time we're going to be in the Royal lot, which is in back. And then we understand that because it's peak season as well, and there's a show every night at the casino, spaces are going to be at a premium again. I'm also, though, working with Commissioner Rose at Department of Resource Economic and Development to try and get parking at the state park. That's the state, so it takes a little more time.
So the other thing is he's leaving very soon.
Yes.
So you have to be on board of who's next with him.
Jeff
Okay.
Rose is leaving too?
Yeah, well, he's got a promotion or something.
That is the paperwork that I believe that...
They split it.
They split into two departments.
Yeah.
Two departments, yes.
All right. Bob, any closing comments?
No. Keep up the good work.
Yeah.
I like that.
All right. Well, I'm going to thank Channel 22. Because of them, all our messages get out, and they do a great job. Thank you, 22. Have a great evening, everyone. Thank you.